I never thought I'd be posting here, but I guess life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. I'm William, 38M, and I've been married to Bridget, 36F, for almost a decade now. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but I always thought we were solid. That is, until Alexander, 28M, moved in next door about 6 months ago. At first, everything seemed normal. Alex was just the friendly new neighbor, always waving hello, offering to help with yard work, that kind of thing. But looking back, I can see the signs I missed. Bridget started putting more effort into her appearance, spending hours at the gym, and constantly checking her phone. I brushed it off as a mid-30s crisis or something, but man, was I wrong. I started to get suspicious when Bridget began making excuses to go over to Alex's place. It was always something innocent, borrowing sugar, asking for help with her laptop, or returning a book. But the frequency was odd. One night, I casually mentioned Alex, and Bridget's reaction caught me off guard. Her face flushed and she quickly changed the subject. That's when the pit in my stomach started to form. I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was being paranoid. But then came the late-night texts, the hushed phone conversations, and the sudden girls' nights out that never seemed to involve any of her usual friends. I felt like I was going crazy, constantly second-guessing myself and wondering if I was just imagining things. Everything came crashing down last week. I got home early from work, feeling under the weather. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed Bridget's car was there, weird, since she was supposed to be at work. I walked in quietly, thinking I'd surprise her. That's when I heard it, unmistakable sounds coming from our bedroom. My heart pounding, I crept up the stairs. The door was slightly ajar, and through the crack, I saw them. Bridget and Alex, in our bed. The bed we bought together when we first got married. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I just stood there, frozen, as my entire world fell apart. I don't know how long I stood there, but eventually I pushed the door open. Bridget screamed, Alex scrambled off the bed, and I just lost it. I started yelling, demanding answers, while they frantically tried to cover themselves. How long? I shouted. How fucking long has this been going on? Bridget, her face a mix of shock and guilt, tried to calm me down. William, please, it's not what you think, Not what I think? I laughed bitterly. I just caught you fucking our neighbor in our bed. What exactly am I supposed to think? Alex, to his credit, looked ashamed. He mumbled something about getting dressed and leaving, but I was beyond caring about his presence. My focus was entirely on Bridget, who was now crying and begging me to listen. It just happened, she sobbed. We didn't mean for this to happen. It was a mistake. But even in my anger, I knew that was bullshit. This wasn't a one-time thing. This had been going on for months, right under my nose. As Alex hastily left, Bridget's story began to fall apart. At first, she claimed it was the first time, a moment of weakness. But as I pressed her, bringing up all the suspicious behavior I'd noticed, she couldn't keep her lies straight. Fine, she finally snapped. It's been going on for a while. Are you happy now? I was far from happy. I felt sick, betrayed, and utterly lost. Why? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why him? Why do this to us? Bridget's response was like a knife to my heart. Because he makes me feel alive, William. When was the last time you made me feel that way? When was the last time you even noticed me? Her words stung, but they also ignited my anger again. So this is my fault? I work my ass off to provide for us, and you repay me by spreading your legs for the neighbor? The look she gave me was cold, almost contemptuous. Maybe if you'd paid attention, you would have noticed I was unhappy. Alex did. That's when I realized, the woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd loved for years, was a stranger to me. The next few days were a blur. Bridget moved out, claiming she needed space to think. I was left alone in our house, surrounded by memories that now felt tainted. Every photo, every shared possession, was a reminder of her betrayal. I couldn't sleep in our bed anymore. The image of them together haunted me every time I closed my eyes. I found myself sleeping on the couch, drowning my sorrows in whiskey, and replaying every moment of our relationship, wondering where it all went wrong. Friends and family started calling, having heard bits and pieces of what happened. Bridget had apparently been spinning her own version of events, painting herself as the victim of a loveless marriage. It was infuriating, but I didn't have the energy to correct everyone. Work became my escape. I threw myself into projects, staying late at the office just to avoid going home to an empty house. But even there, I couldn't escape the pitying looks from coworkers who had heard the gossip. The worst part was the constant loop of questions in my head. How long would it have gone on if I hadn't caught them? Was I really such a terrible husband? And the one that kept me up at night? What do I do now? As the days turned into weeks, my emotions became a wild roller coaster. One moment I'd be consumed by rage, wanting to confront Alex, to make him pay for destroying my marriage. The next, I'd be overwhelmed by a crushing sadness, missing the life I thought I had. There were moments of self-doubt too. Maybe Bridget was right. Had I really been so neglectful? I started obsessing over every detail of our relationship, second-guessing every interaction we'd ever had. The nights were the worst. That's when the loneliness would hit hardest. I'd find myself reaching for Bridget's side of the bed, only to be reminded of her absence. Sometimes, in my lowest moments, I even considered calling her, begging her to come back. But then I'd remember the look on her face when she was caught, the callousness in her voice when she blamed me for her infidelity, and my resolve would strengthen. Friends tried to help, inviting me out for drinks or offering to set me up on dates. But I wasn't ready. The thought of being with someone else made me feel physically ill. How could I trust anyone again after this? Just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, life threw another curveball my way. About a month after Bridget moved out, I received a call from her sister, Jessica. "William, I think there's something you need to know," she said, her voice hesitant. My heart raced, dreading whatever bombshell was coming. "What is it, Jess?" She took a deep breath. "Bridget's pregnant." The world seemed to stop. Pregnant? My mind raced with possibilities and questions. Was it mine? Alex's? How far along was she? Jessica continued. "She's about 2 months along. But she's not sure who the father is." I felt like I was going to be sick. The idea that this child could be mine, conceived during the last few months of our seemingly happy marriage, or the product of her affair with Alex, was almost too much to bear. "Does Alex know?" I managed to ask. "No," Jessica replied. "She hasn't told him yet. She wanted you to know first." As I hung up the phone, I realized that this situation had just gotten infinitely more complicated. Whatever decision I was going to make about our marriage now had much higher stakes. I couldn't just sit on this information. I needed to talk to Bridget face to face. I texted her, asking to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. When she arrived, I could see the slight swell of her belly, barely noticeable but there. My emotions were all over the place: anger, confusion, a strange sense of longing. "So," I started once we'd sat down, "were you planning on telling me about the baby?" Bridget's eyes widened. "How did you dash?" Jessica told me. I cut her off. "Why didn't you tell me yourself, Bridget?" She looked down at her hands. I was scared. "I don't know what to do, William. I don't even know who the father is." I felt a surge of anger. "And whose fault is that?" "You made your bed, Bridget." Literally. Tears welled up in her eyes. "I know I messed up. I'm so sorry, William. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Sorry doesn't cut it," I said, my voice low. "You didn't just cheat on me. You potentially created a life in the process. Do you have any idea what this means?" Bridget nodded, wiping her eyes. "I do. That's why I haven't told Alex yet. I don't know what to do." As much as I wanted to walk away, to tell her this was her problem to deal with, I knew I couldn't. If there was even a chance this child was mine, I had to be involved. "We need to figure this out," I said, my voice softening slightly. "For the baby's sake." After our meeting at the coffee shop, I spent days agonizing over what to do. The possibility that the child might be mine kept me from walking away completely, but the thought of raising Alex's child was equally distressing. Finally, I came to a decision. I called Bridget and told her we needed to meet again, this time with Alex present. It was time to lay all the cards on the table. The meeting was tense, to say the least. Alex looked shocked when Bridget revealed her pregnancy, and I could see the same turmoil in his eyes that I'd been feeling. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're going to get a paternity test as soon as it's safe for the baby. Until then, we all need to be prepared for any outcome." Bridget nodded, looking relieved that someone was taking charge. Alex agreed, though he looked like he might be sick. "If the child is mine," I continued, "I'll be fully involved in its life. But Bridget, understand this, even if I'm the father, it doesn't mean we're getting back together. You betrayed my trust in the worst way possible." Bridget started to protest, but I held up a hand to stop her. "If the child is Alex's, I'll step back. But I want it clear that this doesn't absolve either of you from what you did." As I left that meeting, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger and hurt were still there, but also a sense of purpose. Whatever happened next, I was determined to handle it with as much grace and maturity as I could muster. The next few months were a strange limbo. Bridget's pregnancy progressed, and with it, my anxiety grew. Every time I saw her, which was more often than I'd like due to the circumstances, I couldn't help but stare at her growing belly, wondering if that was my child in there. Alex, to his credit, stepped up. He attended doctor's appointments with Bridget and even reached out to me a few times, awkwardly trying to navigate this bizarre situation we found ourselves in. Part of me wanted to hate him, but I could see he was just as stressed and confused as I was. Bridget, on the other hand, seemed to be using the pregnancy as a way to try and worm her way back into my life. She'd call with updates about the baby, then try to steer the conversation towards reconciliation. Each time, I had to firmly remind her that our relationship was over, regardless of the paternity results. "But don't you think we should try, for the baby's sake?" she'd plead. "The baby deserves parents who trust and respect each other," I'd reply. "That's not us anymore, Bridget." Friends and family were divided. Some thought I should forgive Bridget, especially if the child turned out to be mine. Others applauded my decision to stand my ground. Through it all, I just tried to focus on preparing myself for whatever the paternity test would reveal. As the date for the test approached, my anxiety reached new heights. I found myself lying awake at night, imagining both scenarios. Would I be relieved if the child wasn't mine, finally free to make a clean break? Or would I be heartbroken, losing not only my wife but a child as well? The uncertainty was almost unbearable. The day of the paternity test results finally arrived. We had agreed to meet at the doctor's office to hear the news together. The tension in the room was palpable as we waited for the doctor to come in with the envelope. Bridget sat between Alex and me, fidgeting nervously. Alex looked pale, his leg bouncing up and down. I tried to keep my face neutral, but inside, my heart was racing. When the doctor finally entered, time seemed to slow down. He opened the envelope, looked at the results, and then at us. "The results of the paternity test show that the biological father is..." He paused, and I felt like I might explode from the suspense. "William?" The room went silent. I felt a rush of emotions, relief, fear, joy, and anxiety all at once. I was going to be a father. Despite everything that had happened, despite the betrayal and the pain, I was going to have a child. Alex slumped in his chair, a mix of relief and disappointment on his face. Bridget burst into tears, reaching for my hand. I let her take it, still in shock. "I'll give you all a moment," the doctor said, quietly excusing himself. As the reality of the situation sank in, I realized that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. The baby was mine, but that didn't erase what had happened. Now, I had to figure out how to be a father while dealing with the aftermath of Bridget's infidelity. I looked at Bridget, then at Alex, and took a deep breath. "We need to talk about where we go from here," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "All of us." In the days following the paternity test, my emotions were all over the place. I was thrilled to be a father, but the circumstances were far from what I had always imagined. Bridget took the results as a sign that we should reconcile, but I wasn't ready to go down that road. "William, this is our chance to start over," she pleaded one evening. "We're going to have a baby together. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" I sighed, feeling the weight of the situation. "Of course it means something, Bridget. But it doesn't erase what happened." You cheated. You lied. Having a baby doesn't fix that. Her face fell. So what? You're just going to punish me forever? It's not about punishment, I explained, trying to keep my voice calm. It's about trust. I don't trust you anymore, and I can't be in a relationship without trust. Meanwhile, Alex seemed to be struggling with his own emotions. He reached out to me, asking to meet for a beer. Against my better judgment, I agreed. At the bar, he looked miserable. I'm sorry, man, he said, staring into his drink. I know it doesn't mean much, but I really am sorry for everything. I nodded, unsure how to respond. Part of me wanted to punch him, but another part recognized the genuine remorse in his voice. I'm stepping back, he continued. I won't interfere with you and Bridget or the baby. I hope someday you can forgive me. As I left the bar that night, I realized that forgiveness was going to be a long, complicated process, not just for Alex, but for Bridget too. And most importantly, I needed to learn to forgive myself for not seeing the signs earlier. As Bridget's due date approached, I found myself in a strange position. I was excited about becoming a father, but the circumstances were far from ideal. I decided to focus on what I could control, preparing for the baby's arrival. I threw myself into setting up the nursery in my new apartment. Yes, I had moved out of our shared home, needing a fresh start. Painting walls, assembling furniture, and shopping for baby supplies became my therapy. It gave me a sense of purpose and helped me channel my conflicting emotions into something positive. Bridget and I attended birthing classes together, which was awkward at first. We were trying to co-parent amicably, but the tension was always there. Sometimes, during these classes, I'd catch a glimpse of the woman I fell in love with, and it would make my heart ache. But then I'd remember the betrayal, and the walls would go back up. One evening, after a particularly emotional class about bonding with the baby, Bridget turned to me with tears in her eyes. I know I messed up, William. I know I hurt you in the worst way possible. But can we at least try to be friends? For our child's sake? I took a deep breath, considering her words. I'm not sure I'm ready for friendship, Bridget, but I am committed to being the best co-parents we can be. That's all I can offer right now. She nodded, looking disappointed but understanding. As we parted ways that night, I realized that this journey of healing and co-parenting was going to be a long and challenging one. But for the sake of our child, I was determined to make it work. The call came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Bridget was in labor. Despite all the complicated emotions, I rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and anxiety. When I arrived, Bridget was already in the delivery room. The next few hours were a blur of doctors, nurses, and Bridget's screams of pain. Despite our issues, I found myself holding her hand, coaching her through contractions, and feeling a strange sense of unity in this moment. At 11:23 a.m., our daughter was born. As the doctor placed her in my arms, I felt an overwhelming rush of love. She was perfect, tiny fingers, button nose, and a tuft of dark hair. In that moment, all the pain and betrayal faded into the background. This little girl was all that mattered. Bridget was crying, a mix of exhaustion and joy. She's beautiful, she whispered. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. As I looked at our daughter, I made a silent promise to always put her first, no matter what happened between Bridget and me. The nurse asked for a name, and Bridget and I exchanged a look. We had discussed names but never settled on one. In that moment, though, we both knew. Lily, we said in unison. It felt right, a symbol of new beginnings and hope. As I held Lily, marveling at her tiny features, I realized that while my relationship with Bridget might be irreparably damaged, we had created something beautiful together. And for Lily's sake, we would need to find a way to move forward. The first few months of Lily's life were a whirlwind of sleepless nights, diaper changes, and figuring out our new roles as co-parents. Bridget and I had agreed on a shared custody arrangement, with Lily splitting time between our homes. It wasn't easy. Every handoff was a reminder of what we had lost, what could have been. But we both tried our best to keep things civil for Lily's sake. One particularly difficult night, when Lily was about 3 months old and refusing to sleep, I found myself pacing my living room, gently bouncing her in my arms. As I looked down at her tiny face, scrunched up in discontent, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. "I'm sorry, little one," I whispered. "I'm sorry that your mom and dad couldn't make it work. But I promise you, we both love you more than anything in this world." As if understanding my words, Lily's cries softened, and she looked up at me with her big, innocent eyes. In that moment, I realized that despite all the pain and betrayal, I couldn't regret what had happened. Because it had given me her. The next day, during our custody handoff, I noticed how tired Bridget looked. Without thinking, I offered, "Why don't you get some rest? I can take Lily for a few more hours." Bridget looked surprised, then grateful. "Thank you, William. That means a lot." As I walked away with Lily, I realized that maybe, just maybe, we were starting to find our footing in this new normal. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't what I had dreamed of, but for Lily's sake, we were making it work. As the months passed, I found myself settling into fatherhood. Lily became the center of my world, and I cherished every moment with her. But being a single dad wasn't easy, and I often felt overwhelmed. One day, while at the park with Lily, I ran into Sarah, a woman from my office. She was there with her son, who was about Lily's age. We got to talking, and before I knew it, we'd spent the entire afternoon together. Sarah was divorced and understood the challenges of single parenthood. We started meeting up regularly for playdates, and I found myself looking forward to our conversations. It was nice to have someone who got it, who didn't judge me for my situation. One evening, after the kids had fallen asleep during a movie night at my place, Sarah turned to me with a soft smile. "You know, William, you're doing a great job with Lily. She's lucky to have you as a dad." I felt a warmth in my chest at her words. "Thanks, Sarah. That means a lot." There was a moment of silence, and then Sarah leaned in and kissed me. It was soft, tentative, and over almost as quickly as it began. She pulled back, looking embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have dashed." "No, it's okay," I said, surprised to find that I meant it. I liked it." As we smiled at each other, I realized that for the first time since Bridget's betrayal, I felt ready to open my heart again. It was scary, but also exciting. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope for a new kind of happiness in my future. As Sarah and I began to explore our budding relationship, I found myself in uncharted territory. Dating as a single dad was completely new to me, and I was determined to take things slow, always putting Lily's needs first. Bridget noticed the change in me almost immediately. During one of our custody exchanges, she asked pointedly, "You seem different lately. Is there someone new?" I hesitated, unsure how to navigate this conversation. "Yes," I finally admitted. "I've been seeing someone. It's still new, but it's nice." I saw a flicker of something hurt? Jealousy? Cross Bridget's face before she composed herself. Well, happy for you, William." As I drove away with Lily, I couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed. A year ago, I never would have imagined being in this situation, co-parenting with my ex-wife while starting a new relationship. That evening, as Sarah and I had dinner after putting our kids to bed, I opened up about my conversation with Bridget. "I feel guilty," I confessed. "Like I'm betraying Lily somehow by moving on." Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. "William, you're not betraying anyone. You're allowed to be happy. And Lily deserves to see her dad happy." Her words resonated with me, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was okay to embrace this new chapter in my life. As I looked at Sarah, her eyes warm and understanding, I felt a surge of gratitude. Life had taken me on an unexpected journey, but perhaps it had led me exactly where I needed to be. As Lily's first birthday approached, I found myself reflecting on the tumultuous year that had passed. The pain of Bridget's betrayal had dulled, replaced by the joy of watching our daughter grow and the unexpected happiness I'd found with Sarah. Planning Lily's birthday party brought new challenges. Bridget and I had to work together, navigating the awkwardness of our past and the newness of our co-parenting relationship. To my surprise, we managed to pull it off without major conflicts. On the day of the party, as I watched Lily toddle around, giggling and covered in cake frosting, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Despite the hardships, I had so much to be thankful for. Sarah stood by my side, her presence a comforting anchor. Bridget was across the room, smiling as she helped Lily open a gift. Even Alex had sent a small present, a gesture that showed how far we'd all come. As the party wound down, Bridget approached me, a tentative smile on her face. "We did good, didn't we?" she said, nodding towards Lily. I nodded, feeling a sense of peace. "Yeah, we did." Part 20. Conclusion and Advice. Looking back on this journey, I realize how much I've grown. The betrayal nearly broke me, but it also led me to discover strengths I never knew I had. To anyone going through a similar situation, here's what I've learned. 1. It's okay to feel hurt, angry, and betrayed. Those emotions are valid. 2. Focus on what you can control. For me, that was being the best father I could be. 3. Don't rush the healing process. It takes time, and that's okay. 4. Be open to unexpected sources of happiness. Life can surprise you in the best ways. 5. Co-parenting is challenging, but it's possible with effort and communication. 6. It's okay to move on. You deserve happiness too. Most importantly, remember that while infidelity can end a relationship, it doesn't have to define your life. There's hope and happiness on the other side if you're brave enough to reach for it. Today, I'm in a good place. I have a beautiful daughter, a loving relationship with Sarah, and a cordial co-parenting arrangement with Bridget. Life isn't perfect, but it's pretty damn good. And for that, I'm grateful. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for watching my videos, sharing them, and supporting me along the way. Your views, comments, and likes are the driving force behind my passion to create captivating and unexpected stories. Every tale I share is more than just a plot. It's a journey of emotions, lessons, and reflections that we experience together. Your engagement brings life and soul to this channel. Thank you for sticking with me until the very end of each video because the finale of every story is where the real impact lies. I promise to continue delivering twists and turns that surprise, inspire, and resonate with your hearts.